The USS Dakota hung in space near Pluto like a silver needle against the black void. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the final tests of their new quantum tunnel drive. This was supposed to be a simple test run, nothing more than checking if the experimental engine could work properly. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter called out from her station with worry in her voice. The energy readings were climbing too fast, way beyond what they had planned. She tried to shut down the drive, but the controls would not respond. The ship began to shake as reality itself seemed to bend around them. Jake grabbed his command chair as the shaking got worse. Through the main screen, he could see space twisting like water going down a drain. Lisa shouted that they were losing control of the drive completely. The last thing Jake remembered was a bright flash that seemed to come from everywhere at once. When the light faded, the Dakota was somewhere else entirely. Instead of the familiar dark of Earth's outer system, they were surrounded by massive metal structures that stretched for thousands of miles in every direction. Alien ships moved between the structures like busy insects around a hive. Lieutenant Commander Alex Torres looked at his tactical display with wide eyes. He had never seen anything like this before. There were hundreds of ships out there, some bigger than Earth's largest cities. The designs were strange, all curves and flowing lines that seemed to pulse with their own light. Jake ordered all hands to battle stations while trying to make sense of what had happened. Dr. Amy Foster worked at her science station, scanning everything she could see. The readings told an impossible story. They were no longer in their own solar system. They were not even in their own galaxy. Admiral Zixthon was reviewing patrol reports in his command center when the alarms began screaming. His officers reported that an unknown ship had appeared directly inside their most secure space. This was impossible. Nothing could get past their detection systems. Nothing could jump directly into the heart of their empire without being seen coming from light years away. The Admiral looked at the image of the strange ship on his main screen. It was small compared to his fleet, barely the size of a minor patrol vessel. The design was crude and angular, nothing like the smooth elegance of proper starship construction. He almost laughed at how primitive it looked. Zixthon ordered his ships to surround the intruder and escort it to a holding facility. These aliens, whoever they were, would be questioned and then their ship would be studied. Perhaps their primitive technology might have some small value to the Empire. Jake watched as dozens of alien warships moved to surround the Dakota. Each one was at least twice the size of his destroyer, and their weapons were already powering up. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Brooks was working frantically at his communications station, trying to understand the alien signals flooding their receivers. The alien ships were trying to communicate, but their language was completely unknown. Brooks ran the signals through every translation program they had, but nothing worked. The only thing that came through clearly was the intent. These aliens wanted the Dakota to go with them, and they were not asking politely. Jake made a decision that would change everything. He ordered Torres to plot an evasive course and told Carter to give him everything the engines could handle. The Dakota suddenly accelerated away from the alien formation at a speed that shocked the watching admiral. Zixthon could not believe what he was seeing. The primitive ship was moving faster than anything in his fleet. His own vessels, the most advanced in the known galaxy, could not match its acceleration. He ordered his ships to increase speed, but they were already at maximum power. Lisa pushed the Dakota's engines beyond their normal limits, using every trick she had learned in 20 years of engineering. The ship responded like a living thing, dancing between the massive alien vessels with grace that seemed impossible for something made of metal and electronics. Torres fired warning shots with their railguns, sending solid metal projectiles across the paths of the pursuing ships. The aliens had never seen kinetic weapons before. Their shields were designed to stop energy beams and plasma bolts, not chunks of metal moving at tremendous speed. One of the alien cruisers took a direct hit from a railgun round. The impact tore through its shields like they were not even there, punching a hole clean through the ship's hull. The cruiser began spinning out of control, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Admiral Zixthon felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest and warfare. Fear. His ships, the pride of the Empire, were being outfought by a single primitive vessel. The impossible was happening right in front of his eyes. Jake ordered Brooks to jam the alien communications to prevent them from coordinating their attacks. Brooks unleashed every electronic warfare weapon the Dakota had, flooding the alien frequencies with signals that their computers could not understand or filter out. The alien ships began firing their main weapons, filling space with beams of pure energy that could melt mountains. But the Dakota was no longer where their targeting computers said it should be. Jake used the ship's superior speed and maneuverability to stay one step ahead of their attacks. Dr. Foster worked to analyze the alien weapons and shields while the battle raged around them. She discovered that their energy-based defenses had a critical weakness. They were designed to stop other energy weapons, but they could not handle the kinetic impact of solid projectiles. Torres took advantage of this discovery, targeting the alien ships with precisely aimed railgun rounds that punched through their shields and disabled their weapon systems. Within minutes, 3 more alien vessels were drifting helplessly in space. Admiral Zixthon realized that his entire understanding of warfare had just become worthless. These humans, as his computers had identified them, fought like no species he had ever encountered. They used speed instead of armor, solid projectiles instead of energy beams, and chaos instead of formation flying. Jake knew they could not keep fighting forever. The aliens had hundreds of ships and the Dakota was alone. But they had proven something important. They had shown that human technology and tactics could work against even the most advanced alien empire. As more alien reinforcements arrived from across the system, Jake made another critical decision. He ordered Carter to prepare the quantum tunnel drive for another jump. They had to escape and warn Earth about what they had found out here among the stars. The Dakota vanished in another flash of light, leaving behind a shaken alien fleet and an admiral, who was beginning to understand that his empire had just encountered something that could threaten everything they had built across centuries of conquest. The Dakota emerged from its jump in the outer edge of the same star system, hidden behind a massive asteroid field. Captain Jake Morrison knew they could not run forever, and they needed to understand what they were facing. The quantum tunnel drive was damaged from the hasty escape, and Chief Engineer Lisa Carter estimated it would take hours to repair. Admiral Zixathon was furious as he coordinated the search for the human ship. His pride had been wounded by their escape, and now his superiors were demanding answers he did not have. How could a single primitive vessel outfight an entire fleet? How could it simply vanish without leaving any trace of where it had gone? The Admiral deployed his ships in a wide search pattern, determined to find the humans before they could cause more damage. He had called for reinforcements from 3 nearby systems, bringing his total force to over 50 warships. Surely no single ship could stand against such overwhelming numbers. Jake studied the tactical displays while Dr. Amy Foster analyzed the data they had gathered during the first battle. The alien ships were powerful, but they seemed to follow very rigid patterns. Their formations were perfect but predictable, and their commanders appeared to lack the flexibility that human officers learned from the first day of training. Lieutenant Commander Alex Torres discovered something interesting about the alien weapons. They were incredibly powerful, but they all used the same basic energy frequencies. This meant that if they could find the right countermeasures, they might be able to protect the Dakota from the worst of the alien firepower. Lisa worked with her engineering team to modify the ship's shields, adjusting them to better handle energy weapons while maintaining their resistance to physical impacts. She also began work on new ammunition for their railguns, creating rounds that could penetrate deeper into alien ship structures. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Brooks had been monitoring alien communications since their arrival. He discovered that the enemy used a very centralized command structure. All orders came from flagship commanders, and individual ship captains had very little freedom to make their own decisions during battle. Jake realized this was a weakness they could exploit. If they could disrupt the alien command ships, the rest of their fleet might become confused and unable to coordinate their attacks effectively. It was a dangerous plan, but it might be their only chance to survive against such overwhelming odds. The first alien patrol found them 6 hours later. 3 cruisers detected the Dakota's heat signature among the asteroids and moved in to investigate. Admiral Zix then ordered them to capture the human ship if possible, but to destroy it if capture proved impossible. Jake waited until the alien ships were deep in the asteroid field before ordering the attack. The Dakota emerged from behind a massive rock, firing railgun rounds at point-blank range into the lead cruiser. The kinetic rounds tore through the alien hull like paper, causing massive internal explosions. The second cruiser tried to turn and bring its main weapons to bear, but Torres was ready for this move. He fired a spread of missiles that the alien shields could not stop, each one carrying a warhead designed to overload energy-based defense systems. The cruiser's shields collapsed and railgun fire finished the job. The third alien ship managed to get off a distress signal before the Dakota's electronic warfare systems could jam its communications. This was both good and bad news for the humans. The aliens would know where they were, but they would also know that 3 more ships had been destroyed by the primitive human vessel. Admiral Zixthan received the patrol's final transmission with growing anger and frustration. The humans were not fighting like any civilized species should. They hid among asteroids like pirates, used surprise attacks instead of honorable fleet engagements, and their weapons ignored every principle of modern space warfare. Jake ordered the Dakota to move deeper into the asteroid field, using the massive rocks as cover while they prepared for the inevitable counterattack. Lisa had finished the shield modifications, and Torres had loaded their weapons with the new, penetrating rounds that could punch through alien armor more effectively. Dr. Foster made an important discovery while analyzing the wreckage of the destroyed alien ships. Their technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also highly specialized. Each system was designed to do one thing perfectly, but they could not adapt to unexpected situations or new types of threats. The alien counterattack came with 20 ships, led by Admiral Zixthan himself aboard his flagship. The Admiral was determined to end this threat personally, and he had developed new tactics specifically designed to counter human unpredictability. His ships would advance in tight formation, concentrating their firepower to overwhelm the Dakota's defenses. Jake watched the alien fleet approach and realized that conventional tactics would not work. 20 ships could generate enough firepower to vaporize his vessel in seconds, no matter how good their shields were. He needed to do something the aliens would never expect. The Dakota charged directly at the alien formation, accelerating to maximum speed while firing everything they had. Torres launched every missile in their inventory, while the railguns sent a continuous stream of metal rounds toward the enemy ships. It looked like a suicide attack, and Admiral Zixthan ordered his ships to concentrate fire on the approaching human vessel. At the last possible moment, Jake ordered Carter to activate the damaged quantum tunnel drive for a micro-jump. The Dakota vanished just as dozens of energy beams converged on its position, reappearing directly behind the alien formation before anyone could react. Torres opened fire on the alien ships from behind, targeting their engine sections with armor-piercing rounds. 3 ships lost power immediately, drifting helplessly as their crews tried to restart their damaged systems. The tight alien formation became a liability as ships collided with each other trying to turn around. Admiral Zixthan could not believe what he was seeing. The humans had somehow teleported their ship from one position to another, something that should have been impossible with any known technology. His perfect formation was in chaos, and his ships were being picked off one by an enemy that refused to fight fairly. Brooks unleashed every electronic warfare weapon they had, jamming alien communications and flooding their computers with viruses that their systems could not recognize or counter. Without coordination from their flagship, individual alien ships began making tactical errors as their captains tried to fight independently for the first time in their careers. Jake used the confusion to maximum advantage, ordering hit-and-run attacks that kept the alien ships off balance. The Dakota would appear, fire a devastating barrage, then vanish again before the enemy could respond. Each attack left more alien ships damaged or destroyed. Dr. Foster discovered that the alien ships shared targeting data through their communication networks. By disrupting these networks, Brooks was essentially blinding the entire enemy fleet. They could still see the Dakota on their individual sensors, but they could not coordinate their attacks or share tactical information. Admiral Zixthan finally managed to restore partial communications with his remaining ships, but by then it was too late. Half his fleet was either destroyed or disabled, and the rest were scattered across the asteroid field trying to hunt down a single human ship that seemed to be everywhere at once. Jake realized they had achieved something incredible. Not only had they survived against overwhelming odds, but they had actually won a significant victory against an advanced alien empire. However, he also knew that this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back with even more ships, and eventually the Dakota's luck would run out. News of the human victory spread across the Kethran Empire faster than anyone had expected. Supreme Commander Veltar sat in his command center on the Imperial homeworld, reading reports that seemed impossible to believe. A single alien ship had destroyed dozens of Imperial vessels and made Admiral Zixthun look like an incompetent fool. Veltar was not like the other Kethran commanders. He had risen to power through cunning and adaptability, qualities that had served him well in conquering 17 different species over his long career. He recognized immediately that these humans represented a threat unlike anything the Empire had faced before. The Supreme Commander ordered the mobilization of the Imperial fleet, calling ships from across the galaxy to converge on the sector where the human vessel had appeared. 200 warships would hunt down this single enemy, bringing enough firepower to sterilize entire planets if necessary. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Dakota's damaged engine room, watching Chief Engineer Lisa Carter work on the quantum tunnel drive. The experimental technology had saved their lives multiple times, but each use caused more damage to systems that were never designed for combat applications. Carter explained that they were essentially stranded. The drive could still function for short tactical jumps, but a long-range jump back to Earth would require repairs that could only be done in a proper shipyard. They would have to survive using only what they could salvage or steal from their enemies. Dr. Amy Foster had been analyzing captured Kethran technology from the ships they had disabled. She discovered that alien science was incredibly advanced, but also remarkably inflexible. Their computers could process information at incredible speeds, but they could not handle truly unexpected data or adapt to completely new situations. Lieutenant Commander Alex Torres brought important news from his analysis of enemy communications. The Kethrans ruled over dozens of conquered species, keeping them in line through technological superiority and overwhelming military force. However, many of these subject peoples were growing restless under Imperial rule. Jake realized that they might not be fighting alone. If other species were unhappy with Kethran domination, perhaps they could find allies among the Empire's enemies. The Dakota could not win this war by itself, but it might be able to inspire others to fight for their freedom. The first contact with potential allies came when Chief Petty Officer Ryan Brooks intercepted a coded transmission from a nearby mining facility. The message was not in the official Kethran language, but in something older and more complex. Dr. Foster worked to translate it and discovered it was a call for help. The mining facility was operated by Myrani, workers under Kethran supervision. The Myrani had once been a proud spacefaring civilization until the Empire conquered them 50 years ago. Now they worked in the mines, extracting rare minerals that powered Kethran technology. Commander Nira was the leader of the Myrani resistance cell at the mining facility. She had been planning a hopeless rebellion against their Kethran overseers when the news arrived about a mysterious ship that was destroying Imperial vessels. For the first time in decades, the Myrani dared to hope. Jake made the decision to contact the Myrani directly, despite the risks involved. The Dakota approached the mining facility under stealth, using Carter's modifications to their systems to avoid Kethran detection networks. They needed allies, and the Myrani needed hope. The meeting between Jake and Commander Nira took place in a hidden chamber deep within the mining complex. Nira was amazed to meet the legendary human captain, whose ship had become a symbol of resistance across multiple star systems. She explained how the Empire controlled conquered peoples through fear and technological dominance. The Kethrans had a simple strategy for dealing with rebellious species. They would destroy the military capacity of any world that resisted, then keep the population alive as a workforce. This created a galaxy full of species that hated their conquerors, but lacked the tools to fight back effectively. Jake shared human tactical knowledge with the Myrani, teaching them about guerrilla warfare, improvised weapons, and the importance of striking at enemy weak points rather than facing superior forces directly. These concepts were completely new to the Myrani, who had always fought using conventional military tactics. Sergeant Major Pete Collins led a team of Dakota crew members in training Myrani volunteers how to use captured Kethran weapons more effectively. The aliens had designed their technology to be foolproof, but human ingenuity found ways to modify and improve even the most advanced systems. Lisa Carter worked with Myrani engineers to create hybrid weapons that combined human creativity with alien technology. They developed new types of explosives that could be made from mining equipment. and communication devices that could coordinate resistance activities across multiple systems. Dr. Foster made a crucial discovery about Kethran psychology while studying their interactions with subject peoples. The Empire's strength came from their absolute belief in their own superiority. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology, and they were psychologically unprepared for a war against equals. Admiral Zixthan arrived at the mining facility with a small patrol force, investigating reports of unusual activity in the sector. He found the facility apparently operating normally with no sign of human presence. However, his experienced eye noticed subtle changes in how the Mirani workers behaved. The Admiral had learned to respect human cunning during their previous encounters. He ordered a thorough search of the facility, suspecting that the humans might be hiding somewhere among the mining tunnels. His suspicions proved correct when his soldiers discovered modified Kethran weapons in a storage area. Jake had anticipated this possibility and prepared accordingly. As Kethran soldiers searched the facility, they triggered booby traps designed using human engineering principles. The traps were simple but effective, using mining explosives to collapse tunnel sections and trap the invaders underground. Commander Nira led the Mirani workers in their first successful rebellion, using the tactics and weapons that the humans had provided. They captured the Kethran patrol ships and freed themselves from decades of Imperial oppression. The victory was small but symbolic of what was possible. News of the Mirani rebellion spread through underground resistance networks across the Empire. Other conquered species began to realize that the Kethrans were not invincible, and that human knowledge could give them the tools they needed to fight back effectively. Supreme Commander Veltar received reports of uprisings on 6 different worlds, all using similar tactics and weapons. He realized that the human ship was not just a military threat, but a source of inspiration for every species that resented Kethran rule. The Empire was facing its first serious challenge in centuries. The Imperial fleet finally arrived in the sector with overwhelming force, but they found a very different situation than expected. Instead of hunting down a single enemy ship, they faced a growing rebellion that was spreading across multiple star systems with each passing day. Jake stood on the Dakota's bridge, looking at tactical displays that showed Imperial ships massing throughout the region. The real war was just beginning, and humanity had accidentally become the spark that would ignite a galaxy-wide revolution against one of the most powerful empires in known space. Dr. Foster brought him the final piece of intelligence they needed. She had discovered the location of the Kethran Command and Control Center that coordinated their entire military operation. If they could strike at this facility, they might be able to cripple the Empire's ability to respond to the growing rebellion. Carter announced that she had completed enough repairs to give them one more long-range jump with the quantum tunnel drive. They could reach the command center, but they would not be able to escape afterward. It would be a one-way mission that could determine the fate of an entire galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison decided against the suicide mission to the Kethran Command Center. The Dakota was more valuable as a symbol of hope and a training platform for the growing rebellion than as a single devastating attack. Instead, he chose to continue hit-and-run operations while building a network of allies across the Empire. The decision proved wise as more species joined the resistance movement. The Villani contributed their expertise in stealth technology, while the Rothak provided knowledge of Kethran weak points from their years as forced laborers in Imperial shipyards. Each new ally brought unique skills that strengthened the overall rebellion. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter had become the most important person on the ship, working around the clock to maintain their hybrid systems and develop new weapons. She created torpedo designs that used Kethran power cores with human guidance systems, producing weapons that could penetrate alien shields through completely unexpected methods. The Dakota's original systems were failing under constant combat stress. Carter's engineering team had to rebuild entire sections of the ship using salvaged alien technology, creating a unique vessel that combined the best of human and alien science. The ship was becoming something entirely new. Lieutenant Commander Alex Torres coordinated with resistance cells across dozens of star systems, teaching them human small unit tactics and improvised weapons construction. The rigid Kethran occupation forces proved unable to adapt to the suddenly flexible and unpredictable resistance movements that emerged everywhere. Sergeant Major Pete Collins led training missions to multiple worlds, showing conquered peoples how to fight effectively against technologically superior enemies. His lessons in guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and psychological operations spread throughout the underground networks faster than Imperial forces could respond. Supreme Commander, Veltar found himself fighting a completely different kind of war than any Kethrin had experienced. Traditional Imperial strategy involved overwhelming force applied to clearly defined targets. But the human-inspired rebellion had no central leadership and no fixed bases to attack. The Empire's response became increasingly desperate and brutal. Veltar ordered mass arrests and executions on worlds where resistance activity was detected. But this only created more rebels as families and friends of the victims joined the underground movement seeking revenge against their oppressors. Admiral Zixthan began to question the Empire's methods as he witnessed the growing violence against civilian populations. He had spent his career as a professional soldier fighting other military forces, not terrorizing innocent people. The human war was changing everything he believed about honor and duty. Dr. Amy Foster made breakthrough discoveries about Kethrin technology by studying captured command systems. She found that the Empire relied on a central control network that coordinated everything from fleet movements to planetary communications. This network was incredibly efficient but also vulnerable to the right kind of attack. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Brooks developed new electronic warfare techniques specifically designed to exploit the centralized nature of Kethrin systems. His chaos algorithms could spread through enemy networks like viruses, causing cascading failures that paralyzed entire sectors of Imperial operations. Commander Nira had become the unofficial leader of the multi-species alliance that was forming around the Dakota's operations. Her experience as a resistance organizer helped coordinate activities between species that had never worked together before, building trust and cooperation across ancient cultural barriers. The turning point came when Admiral Zixthan made contact with the Dakota during a skirmish in the Corvin system. Instead of attacking immediately, he opened a communication channel and requested a temporary ceasefire to discuss terms. Jake was suspicious but agreed to listen to what the alien commander had to say. Zixthan explained that he had come to respect human courage and tactical skill during their repeated encounters. He had also grown disgusted with his own empire's increasing brutality towards civilian populations. The Admiral proposed a secret alliance that would provide intelligence about Imperial operations in exchange for human tactical support. Jake was torn between suspicion and hope. Could they trust an enemy commander who claimed to want to help them? Dr. Foster pointed out that Kethrin's psychology made deception in such matters almost impossible for their species. Their cultural values placed enormous importance on personal honor and keeping one's word. The alliance with Admiral Zixthan provided crucial intelligence about Imperial fleet movements and defensive weak points. The Admiral used his position to subtly misdirect other Kethrin forces, creating opportunities for successful resistance operations while maintaining his cover within the Imperial command structure. Carter received technical specifications for advanced Kethrin systems through this alliance, allowing her to develop even more effective hybrid technologies. The Dakota's weapons became capable of disabling entire enemy formations without destroying them, allowing rebel forces to capture ships and equipment intact. The captured vessels became the foundation for a growing rebel fleet as more species contributed crews and technical expertise. Human tactical knowledge combined with alien technology and multi-species cooperation created a force that was becoming genuinely dangerous to Imperial control. Supreme Commander Veltar recognized the threat and began concentrating his forces for a massive counterattack. Intelligence reports indicated that the rebel fleet was gathering in the Nexus sector, preparing for what appeared to be a major offensive operation. He decided to crush this rebellion once and for all. Jake received warning of the Imperial buildup from Admiral Zixthan, but he also realized this was an opportunity. If they could defeat Veltar's concentrated forces in a major battle, it would demonstrate that the Empire could be beaten in conventional warfare, not just through guerrilla operations. The Rebel Alliance had grown to include representatives from over 30 species, each contributing unique capabilities to the common cause. The Mirani provided industrial support, the Villani offered stealth technology, and the Rothak shared their knowledge of Kethrin ship construction and weak points, so Torres worked with alien tactical officers to develop battle plans that took advantage of each species' strengths while compensating for their weaknesses. The resulting strategy was unlike anything ever seen in galactic warfare, combining elements from dozens of different military traditions. Collins trained mixed-species boarding parties that could capture enemy vessels during battle, using techniques that no Kethran defender would expect. These teams would disable ships from within while the main fleet engaged them from outside, maximizing the number of vessels that could be captured rather than destroyed. Dr. Foster perfected her network infiltration techniques, preparing to launch a massive cyber attack against Kethran command systems at the crucial moment in the upcoming battle. If successful, this attack would leave Imperial forces blind and unable to coordinate their responses. Brooks assembled a communication network that could maintain coordination between rebel forces even under the intense jamming that characterized major space battles. The system used multiple species technologies to create redundant channels that Kethran forces could not disrupt. Carter completed her most ambitious project yet, a weapon system that could turn the Empire's own technology against them on a massive scale. The device would need to be delivered at close range to enemy command ships, making it an extremely dangerous mission for whoever carried it into battle. As both fleets prepared for the decisive confrontation, Jake reflected on how much had changed since the Dakota first appeared in Kethran space. They had gone from being a lost human ship to the center of a galaxy-wide revolution that was reshaping the balance of power among the stars. The Empire that had seemed invincible was now facing its greatest challenge, not from another powerful civilization but from its own oppressed subjects inspired by human examples of courage and ingenuity. The final battle would determine whether freedom or tyranny would rule the galaxy. The final battle began in the shadow of the Kethran homeworld, where Supreme Commander Veltar had assembled the largest fleet in Imperial history. 300 warships formed perfect formations around the planet, their weapons charged and ready to destroy the rebel alliance that threatened everything the Empire had built over centuries of conquest. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the Dakota's bridge, looking at tactical displays that showed the rebel fleet approaching their destiny. They had come so far from that accidental jump near Pluto, and now they faced the ultimate test of everything they had learned and built together. The Rebel Alliance brought 200 ships from 30 different species, each vessel modified with hybrid technologies that combined human ingenuity with alien science. The fleet looked chaotic compared to Imperial formations, but Jake knew that apparent disorder concealed careful planning and coordination. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter monitored her greatest creation, the network disruption device that could turn Kethran technology against itself. The weapon was installed in the Dakota's forward torpedo bay, ready for deployment at the crucial moment. Carter knew that using it would likely destroy their ship, but some victories required sacrifice. Admiral Zixthan commanded a squadron of Kethran vessels that had secretly joined the rebellion, their crews tired of serving an empire that had lost its honor. He maintained radio silence to preserve his cover, waiting for the moment when he could reveal his true allegiance and strike at his former comrades. Supreme Commander Veltar opened the battle with a massive barrage from his entire fleet, filling space with enough energy to vaporize asteroids. The rebel ships scattered according to human tactical doctrine, refusing to present concentrated targets for Imperial weapons. The rigid Kethran formations found themselves firing at empty space. Lieutenant Commander Alex Torres coordinated the rebel response, directing multi-species task forces in coordinated attacks against specific Imperial formations. The rebels used their superior speed and maneuverability to strike at enemy weak points, then withdraw before the Kethrans could bring their superior firepower to bear. Dr. Amy Foster launched her cyber attack against the Kethran command network, flooding their systems with chaos algorithms that caused cascading failures throughout the Imperial fleet. Suddenly, perfectly coordinated formations became individual ships struggling to maintain communication with their commanders. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Brooks amplified the electronic warfare assault, using captured Kethran transmitters to inject false orders into enemy communication channels. Imperial ship captains found themselves receiving contradictory commands, creating confusion and hesitation at the worst possible moment. The battle reached its turning point when Admiral Zixthan revealed his allegiance, turning his squadron against the Imperial flagship. The surprise attack came from within Kethran formations, striking at command ships that had no defense against betrayal from their own forces. Sergeant Major Pete Collins led boarding parties against disabled Imperial vessels, using multi-species teams trained in human combat techniques. The Kethran defenders had never faced enemies who fought with such flexibility and creativity, adapting their tactics moment by moment to overcome any resistance. Supreme Commander Veltar realized that his perfect formations had become a liability against enemies who refused to fight according to established rules. He ordered his fleet to break formation and engage in individual combat, hoping that superior Imperial technology could still win the day. Jake saw the opportunity that Veltar's tactical change had created. The Imperial fleet was now scattered and vulnerable, no longer protected by coordinated defensive fire. He ordered the final phase of their attack plan, sending the Dakota on a direct assault against the enemy command ship. Carter activated the network disruption device as they approached the Imperial flagship, releasing a wave of destructive energy that spread through every Kethran system it touched. The weapon turned the Empire's own technology into a virus that consumed their networks from within. The Imperial flagship's shields failed as its own power systems attacked each other, leaving the massive vessel defenseless against the Dakota's weapons. Torres fired everything they had at point-blank range, crippling the ship that had commanded the Kethran war effort. Veltar found himself trapped aboard a dying ship, surrounded by systems that no longer obeyed his commands. For the first time in his long career, the Supreme Commander experienced the helplessness that the Empire's victims had felt for generations. The defeat was complete and absolute. Admiral Zix then rescued the Dakota's crew before their ship was destroyed by the feedback from Carter's weapon. The sacrifice had been necessary to break the Imperial command network, but Jake mourned the loss of the vessel that had started this galactic revolution. The battle ended with the surrender of the remaining Imperial forces, their morale shattered by the loss of their command structure and the revelation that some of their own officers had joined the rebellion. The Kethran Empire, which had seemed invincible, collapsed in a single day. Dr. Foster worked with representatives from liberated species to establish communication protocols for the new Galactic Alliance. The network that emerged was based on cooperation rather than domination, with each species contributing their unique knowledge and capabilities to the common good. Commander Nira became the first elected leader of the Interspecies Council, representing dozens of worlds that had thrown off Imperial rule. The Council's founding principles included individual freedom, technological sharing, and the peaceful resolution of conflicts between member species. Jake accepted an offer to serve as military advisor to the new alliance, helping to train defense forces that could prevent any single power from achieving the dominance that the Kethran Empire had once held. The galaxy would never again be vulnerable to conquest by a technological superior enemy. Carter survived the destruction of the Dakota and continued her work developing hybrid technologies for the Alliance. Her innovations became the foundation for a new era of scientific cooperation that advanced knowledge far beyond what any single species could achieve alone. Torres established the first interspecies military academy, teaching officers from dozens of worlds how to work together effectively. The Academy's motto became Unity through Diversity, reflecting the lesson that different perspectives made everyone stronger. Collins trained security forces for member worlds, ensuring that the techniques that had defeated the Empire would be preserved and passed on to future generations. His students carried human tactical knowledge to every corner of the galaxy. Brooks became head of the Alliance Communication Network, creating systems that could maintain coordination between hundreds of different species while respecting their individual cultures and languages. The network became a symbol of cooperation, replacing the fear that had once dominated galactic affairs. Admiral Zixthun served as liaison between former Imperial forces and the new alliance, helping to integrate Kethran technology and personnel into the cooperative framework. His honor and sacrifice became an example of how former enemies could become trusted allies. Dr. Foster established the Galactic Science Institute, where researchers from all member species worked together to understand the universe and develop technologies for the benefit of everyone. The Institute's discoveries revolutionized medicine, engineering, and space travel throughout the galaxy. The memorial to the USS Dakota was built in orbit around the former Kethran homeworld, now renamed New Hope in honor of what the human ship had brought to countless oppressed peoples. The memorial carried a simple inscription that had become the motto of the new galactic civilization: "From the smallest seed of courage can grow the mightiest tree of freedom." When people stand together, no tyranny can survive, and no dream of liberty is impossible to achieve. Jake often visited the memorial, remembering the crew members who had died to make the galaxy a better place. The experimental ship that had accidentally jumped into alien space had become the catalyst for the greatest transformation in galactic history. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but humanity had proven that even the smallest voice could echo across the stars when it spoke the truth about freedom, dignity, and the right of all thinking beings to determine their own destiny among the infinite possibilities of space.